Welcome back to the Centre for Christian Spirituality for our reflection on the Gospel of the following Sunday. And today we're going to reflect on the Gospel of the 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Let's just hear the reading. A leper came to him, begging him, and kneeling he said to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, and said to him, "I do choose, be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the word, so that Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country, and people came to him from every quarter. Again, this is just a little snippet that captures what Jesus is doing. We saw last week that he preached in the synagogue, so he was working within the framework of Jewish life of his time. We can see here after the healing, he sends the healed person off to fulfill what was recommended by Moses. So Jesus clearly is a Jew working within the Jewish faith. What's happening here is again a miracle, and the purpose of the miracle is to respond to the faith of the man with the leper, at the man who was a leper. Faith is not mentioned, but the very fact that he says, "If you choose, you can help me," then it really is clear that this person has faith in Jesus. And it's that faith in Jesus that is the important thing that brings about the miracle. Notice the popularity of Jesus. He can't go into towns, even though in a short while we'll see he does go into town, but it's the popularity theme that's running through. I feel that the principal emphasis there is the faith of the man who wanted to be healed. And in reflecting on the faith of this man, I look to the second reading that is here in the liturgy, namely the reading from 1 Corinthians, where Paul has just resolved the issue of being able to eat meat offered to idols, but recognising that because we have the right to do it, maybe we have to be careful that we don't offend others. And he gives a principle which I think is a basic principle of faith, that whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all for the glory of God. And I think that's really what faith is about, that we are doing things for the glory of God, and we are helping to bring people to share in the word that Jesus is preaching. He says also, don't be offensive to Jews, to Greeks, or to even people in the church. He says, be helpful. In other words, we're helping people in order that we might bring them to salvation. So I feel that the faith that we are called to imitate is perhaps more explicitly spelled out in that reading from 1 Corinthians, but I think it is encapsulated in the desire of the man to be healed and responding to Jesus in the way he did.
I'd like to make one comment there, picking up this faith. It seems to me, though, that this little scene begins with just the one-on-one. You could imagine there's no one else around that man with leprosy, just Jesus and him. But being touched by Jesus, it's as though it explodes. He's please don't tell anyone. I don't know if it's good or bad. He went and told everyone. Clearly he was healed because everyone was happy to see him. And it almost as though it created the wave across the culture. Yes. So it's this very, the one-on-one experience of Jesus, and that changes the person and the culture around.
Yes.
There are two things that struck me. One, and you've both alluded to it or mentioned it specifically, that it's not Jesus who excludes He enters into the life of the one who has leprosy, one who was shunned by the rest of society, but not Jesus. Jesus enters into the life of that person and effects a healing that reminds me of the little ditty from growing up. Can you keep a secret? I don't suppose you can. You mustn't laugh, you mustn't smile, just do the best you can. But it's not the latter part of the little ditty, it's the first, can you keep a secret? And the one cured can't keep that secret that Jesus asked him to. And again, it goes back to what we've seen in the past couple of Sundays, that when, something incredible happens, you want to tell the world, which is exactly what he does.
I think we need to recognise that this Jesus telling them, not the people whom he heals, not to tell anybody, this is known as the Messianic secret in Mark. And it's suggested that really at this stage, in the first part of the Gospel, when Jesus' identity is being worked with, that Jesus doesn't want the sort of response that is there of all the crowd coming along. That in fact he's looking for something deeper, which will be revealed in the second half of the Gospel. And I think that the popularity of the crowd is in a sense seen as something rather superficial rather than that deep faith that really is important.
Sure.
So we invite you now to read the text and draw out from it what you feel to be important. Welcome back. We invite you now to listen to the reading again in the light of your own reflections and our reflections as well.
A leper came to him, begging him, and kneeling, he said to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, "I do choose. Be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the word, so that Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country, and people came to him from every quarter.
I think the thing that came to me of something to do was really St. Paul's words that I use to fill out what faith in Jesus means. That not to be offensive to anyone, Jews, Greeks, or people in the church, and to be helpful to everyone. I think that's a very practical and ordinary, everyday thing we can all do, but perhaps we may not always do it. So I'd like to reflect this week on how I'm doing that.
And for me, really, was to identify in a strange way with the leper, to ask for that healing from Jesus in that very direct way, to say, "Make me whole."
I can easily understand people saying, what would Jesus do in terms of rules and regulations that are around us? But Jesus doesn't in any way fly in the face of it. He asks the leper to do what the law asks in this situation. So for me, there's something of that faithfulness that comes from the experience of being connected with the person of Jesus, or being opened to the mystery of that presence. And how might I, as I go through this week, try to allow that relationship with Jesus to deepen the faith that I say that I have in God.
I'd like to invite you now to just look at the Gospel again and to see what it is that you draw from it, something practical that you can apply to your life. Let us now spend a few moments in prayer, asking the Lord for the strength and courage that we need to implement what we have decided. Thank you for being with us for our reflection on the Gospel of the sixth Sunday of the year. We invite you to be with us next week, and to conclude we will listen to the prayer from the Liturgy of the sixth Sunday.
O God, who teach us that you abide in hearts that are just and true, grant that we may be so fashioned by your grace as to become a dwelling pleasing to you through Christ our Lord.